2026 is a very important year for soccer in the United States. It's no secret that the United States are obviously hosting the 2026 World Cup, which the USMNT are automatically qualified for because they are the host nation. Now, also, Major League Soccer is banking on 2026 for being a huge year in its growth and helping elevate the league to heights it has never seen before. But today we're going to talk about what are they doing? Are they taking the correct steps forward to maximize their potential? And what I would do differently if I were commissioner of Major League Soccer. So I want to get into the salary cap, what the current spending is in MLS, what the average team is spending, the median salary, all that stuff. And we're going to compare it to other leagues in the United States because I think that's the best way to do it is to see the difference in spending. Now, obviously, some of these leagues make more money. These leagues have more fans, but just the gap is crazy when you look at it compared to Major League Soccer. So let's go ahead and look at the salary cap and look at MLS and compare their spending. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, make sure you give it a like down below and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are less than 300 subscribers away from hitting 8,000 subs. And our goal is to hit that number by the end of July. So make sure you subscribe if you haven't already and hit that little bell notification so you never miss any of our videos. Now, back to the video. Look at when the CBA was signed in 2021, compare it to how it's gradually increased. So in 2021, MLS obviously negotiated a new collective bargaining agreement. And this was right after the pandemic. They had renegotiated because it was supposed to expire after the 2025 season, but they extended it for a couple more years because of uncertainty. They had a clause where they could renegotiate it, right? So in 2020, the salary budget was $4.9 million. In 2021, it was $4.9 million. And in 2022, it's $4.9 million. The only thing that changed was that the general allocation money, which was an extra mechanism for those of you who don't know, to spend a little bit more on the middle of your roster. It's more flexible money that you can use however you want. This is how a lot of teams separate themselves from quality from the lowest to the highest end in the league. But as you can tell, when looking right here, they just didn't increase the spending. And I think that this is a huge reason why the league's quality stagnated a couple years because there wasn't any new investment. And if you look in 2027, this is 8 years or 8 seasons after the original CBA was signed in 2020. The only difference in salary budget was $4.9 to $7 million. That's only $2.1 million difference in 8 years. Because keep in mind, this says 2021, but this is exactly the same as it was in 2020 as well. Now, if you look at the general allocation money, which I mentioned earlier, is a mechanism that's more freely used. You can be a little bit more flexible with how you want to spend it on your roster, transfer fees, all this, buying player salaries down. Now that has increased significantly. That went from 1.5 million to 3.9 million. And they're kind of phasing out or trying to phase out TAM because that's more, I mean, it's called targeted allocation money. That is going to, you can only use that to buy down players who would be a designated player, which is someone who is over the max roster budget of $700,000. That's what that's used for. And you can also use it on their transfer fee if they're going to be a DP. They're trying to phase that out because, like I said, you have to be, it's more specific about what you can use it on where the GAM is more flexible, right? So they're phasing that out and increasing the GAM. But so the available spending power on roster is 9.2 million in 2021 and 13 million in 2027. We're talking about a $4.8 million increase. $4.8 million increase in 7 years. 7 years. Inflation, if you take that into consideration, this is laughable, obviously, and this is just not good enough. And we're going to talk about a couple other things comparing it to other leagues. But now the 13 million is what you can spend on the surface level, you know, considering the DP. When we talk about a designated player, right? A designated player doesn't count towards that. They just count as a max budget hit for the salary, right? I mentioned this earlier, $730K. So people will see the $13 million and think, okay, well, wait a second. So how is the available spending? Well, it's actually 11.1 million dollars because 2025. How is it $11.1 million? Yet Miami's payroll is $46 million. How is this possible? How does this happen? It's because the designated player. A designated player, you can pay him whatever salary you want, but their budget hit is only going to be $700 to $730,000 against the cap. So that's how you get this inflated or these high end payrolls that are exceeding the available spend on the roster. They're obviously spending more than that. So I wanted to point this out. Miami, $46 million payroll, most in MLS history, and it's about to increase even more when they sign Rodrigo de Paul. Okay. So $46 million available to spend on the roster. The median salary or payroll in Major League Soccer is $18.1 million. And the average payroll in Major League Soccer is $19 million. Okay. So they are spending more than what they show in this, compensation comparison or this increase each year, the CBA. They are spending more than that. But the problem is they don't get to spend it freely. I mean, Messi, for example, we all know he's great. We all know he's the best player of all time, or most people believe that. I believe that. He's going to cost a significant amount of money to play in this league, right? The salary. He is making $20 million plus other things, incentives and deals that he's making with the league. But $20 million is his flat fee that the club is paying him. 20 million is 7 or 9 million more than the 11.1 million that's available to spend on the roster. If Inter Miami is spending $46 million on their payroll, why can't they spend that $46 million how they want to spend it? Why are they having to do it in these constructed guidelines? Instead of just being like saying, hey, okay, you have $46 million, you can spend it however you want. It would be spent more effectively. And I think the quality of teams would be better if you were allowed to spend that how you wanted. You're spending the same amount of money. So why does it matter how you spend it? That's what I don't understand is if you're going to spend that type of money, why does it matter how you spend it? Why can't you spend it more freely? A lot of people agree something like that would change the league dramatically. It would improve the quality across the board, and you'd have better depth, better pieces. I mean, if the payroll is 46 mil, Messi's making 20. That means you'd be able to spend $26 million on the rest of the roster for just the payroll. Imagine what kind of team you could build around him and what kind of quality you would have improved. It's just spending wasted money on 9 million, Busquets, and 6 million on Alba. Obviously good players in their prime, but they're not worth combined 16 million, $15 million at this point, and you could build a better team around your key players, right? And if we're comparing this now, like I said, the payrolls are higher than what it shows here for the available spend on roster numbers. If we're comparing it to the NFL, the most popular league in America, their payroll is 200, or their salary cap, is $295 million. $295 million. Now they have a 53-man roster, so that you have to put that into the equation. But like the NBA has a 15-man roster. Their salary budget is $170 million for 15 players. 15 players. $170 million. And it actually can exceed that because of other mechanisms and the luxury tax and all that stuff. The NHL ratings are better than MLS, but it's not like night and day, out of this world, not even close, right? NHL, their salary cap their floor is $70 million. The floor, that means every team in the league has to spend a minimum of $70 million, and their cap, their ceiling is $90 million. $90 million. The spending is obviously not being utilized in the most effective way, even though they are spending. They're just not letting them do it freely and do it in the most effective way. And if they were able to do this, and this is, I want to get into my main point of what I would change and what I would do differently in Major League Soccer if I were commissioner and how they can improve this league. Okay. What could they do to make this league a top 5 league in the world? And I will debate anybody that they have the potential to be a top 5 league because of the market, the appeal of living in the United States, and because we're the sports capital of the world. We just don't have the investment for soccer. We don't have the right, not necessarily infrastructure, but maybe you could say that too. It's not ready to be top 5 yet, but it will be and could be top 5 eventually, right? So here are some things that I would change. Because I did this poll. I said, what would you guys do if you had a choice? Would you eliminate the salary cap? Would you increase the salary cap by 20 million? Would you add a fourth DP, which, like I said earlier, is a mechanism where you can sign a player, their budget hits like 700K, but they can make any salary they want? Or would you do nothing and keep it the same? A majority of people said that they would eliminate the cap. Like 53% voted and said that they would eliminate the cap. Now that's just not going to happen. MLS loves the salary cap. They love it. I mean, it's keeps control of spending. That is never going to happen. Okay. So we want to talk, even though that would be cool to see, because obviously I don't think that these cheap teams have anything to lose. There's no pro rel, so they can't get relegated even if they're bad. So they really don't have anything to lose by other teams spending. A lot of these teams are never going to win anyway. So what's the point? What's the point of holding other teams down, anchoring them down? So if we're talking about realistically what I would do to change this league, I said earlier, Inter Miami are spending $46 million in 2025, and it's going to increase when Rodrigo de Paul comes here. It's probably going to be closer to 60 to $65 million. That's going to be their salary cap or their payroll in 2025. What I would do to change this league, to make it a better league and hopefully reach the goal of being a top 5 league in 2020, 2030, maybe 2035, the next 10 years, I'd say. They don't have to get rid of the cap. They just have to let teams spend more effectively. Okay. What I would do is I would increase the cap to $40 million. $40 million. Okay. And I would implement a salary cap floor to make the cheap teams spend at least the bare minimum because their fans deserve to have some hope and to show that their team cares. Okay. So probably a ceiling or a cap of 40 million and a floor of 20 to 25 million to keep. So that way you keep the parity there. Everybody wants and preaches, they keep the parity. All right. I would eliminate 2 DP spots and just have 1 DP spot because you don't really need 3 if you have a $40 million cap, right? But this DP, I said earlier, 700K budget hit against the cap. There would be no budget charge for a DP. They don't count against the cap at all. So essentially, let's use Miami as an example because it's just the easiest one to follow. Messi would be a DP, and then the team would have $40 million to build a team around Messi. Imagine if you had $40 million to build your team around Messi, what kind of team you could build. That is how you're going to improve the quality. And then also Montreal. Montreal is the cheapest team in the league by far. They have what I call used DPs, which is secondhand DPs that other teams don't want, and they just take them. Like Vrioni, he's a guy that played for New England Revolution. He's not good. They just take other people's sloppy seconds. Okay, if there was a 25 million salary cap floor, that would elevate the team. They would have to spend money. They'd be more competitive, and that would be great for the league to have these cheap teams have to invest. Okay, so if you had a $40 million salary cap and then a 20 to $25 million salary cap floor, the league would keep its parity. I think it would keep its parity intact because teams would be spending. That's what I would do. The second thing I would do, get rid of the international roster spots. Get rid of them. That's just so stupid. Just get rid of them. Now, I don't think you should go completely crazy to where you just don't have any American players on your team because you obviously have to have some, but the international roster spots, you only get 8 per, you can trade for more, but you only get 8 per team, right? And Miami has like 13, 14, players that are international players. They're just trading for them left and right. I would either get rid of that or maybe increase it to like 10 to 12 Because let's be honest, you need more than just 8 international players on your team. If you want to have a good quality team, you need to have more than 8. You probably need 12. I mean, most rosters are between 24 to 28 players on a team. So if you have half your team is international players, that's not that crazy. That's very common. Like look at the Premier League, look at La Liga. Several of the best teams in the world have a mixture of all kinds of different players, not just domestic players, all kinds of different players. That is something that has to change too, right? So if you can add the salary cap or increase it, and add a salary cap floor to make these teams spend, increase their international roster spots, and on top of that, change the schedule because that's another thing we talked about numerous times. Change the schedule to where you are aligned with the Euro schedule for the transfer market is fluid. You don't lose your best players in the middle of the season. You are able to buy players before the season starts because a lot of these teams don't want to sell their best player in the middle of the year. They just don't want to do that. If you can do that, I honestly believe those three simple things would make this league a top 5 league within 5 to 10 years. Within 5 to 10 years. Ajax, who historically, they've been down recently. Okay, I understand that. They've been down recently. Ajax, I want to say their salary payroll right now is only $44 million. Okay? $44 million. Inter Miami is spending more money than Ajax on the payroll. But which team would win? Which team would win a game right now between Ajax and Inter Miami? Because they're allowed to spend their money more effectively, more wisely, more strategic, not just these simple rules that are completely outdated. And 2026, guys, is such an important year. It really is. I love MLS. A lot of you guys love MLS. It is a fun league to watch. But the problem is they're not trying to win over people who are already watching the league. They're trying to win over the people who aren't watching the league. And there's a lot of people who don't think the league is good enough. They just don't. They don't think it's good enough. You have to increase the quality if you want to get casual soccer fans to watch the league. And the only way this league can be its best version of itself is to increase the popularity and to get more people watching this league. And the only way it's going to happen is if you have more talent on the pitch. They've already signed the biggest star in MLS history, MLS history and honestly, probably world history of soccer. They signed the biggest star you could possibly get, and it hasn't moved the needle enough. And when he leaves, and they don't have a backup plan or they don't have something implemented to keep the quality good, they're going to be in trouble. 2026 is a huge deal. They have got to do something. They cannot just sit on their hands and just keep it the same. And 3% of you voted to do nothing and keep it the same. That's absolutely crazy. They got to do something. They have to do something. But 2026 is the most important year for soccer in the United States and Major League Soccer. And something has to be done. Something has to change. And I'm hoping that the owners and Don Garber implement something, take initiative, be proactive to help this league grow and be as good as many people believe it can be. And I'm hoping for the best. We'll see. We're less than a year away. It's going to be interesting to see. And also want to point this out too. MLS used to have a problem where they couldn't convince people to come here in their prime. They could not. People didn't want to go anywhere near this league. Or even not even their prime, but just up and coming players who have potential. They did want to come to this league, guys. But Major League Soccer, MLS was able to build a foundation to get these young players to prove that they can come here, develop, and get a better move. It's happened several times over the last couple years. So now the problem isn't convincing people to come here. It's the owners in the league that's in their own way. They could have an incredible team. Like I said earlier, if you gave Inter Miami, if you give LAFC, LA Galaxy, New York City FC $40 million in salary to spend, they're going to build a pretty good team. a really good team because there's a lot of players that want to come live in the United States and play in the US or look at it as an opportunity to maybe get a bigger move. The only people or person that's standing in their way is MLS itself. And I really hope that changes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Make sure you give it a like down below if you did. And I also want you to comment down below. Let me know what you guys think. What would you change about Major League Soccer if you were commissioner for a day or commissioner in general? What would you do to help this league grow? What would be your path forward? Let me know down below. And also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that little bell notification so you never miss a video. And until next time, guys, I will see you all soon.